What do you genuinely not understand? How so many terrible commercials make it to TV? When I see a dumb commercial, my thought is always the same. A group of grown-ass people sat around a table somewhere and discussed how they want to promote their brand. They came up with an entire marketing strategy, probably had a vote about it, and sent approval on to the marketing department company for production. That marketing department created, scripted, filmed, and produced that piece of shit commercial. Then they sent it back to the group of grown-ass people who sat around the same table watching the shitty commercial before agreeing that it's sending the exact message they want about their brand. They likely then vote again to approve running it on TV. A huge budget is approved for putting that dumbass commercial out there, and the result is the piece of crap I just saw on TV. Yeah, I don't understand that. Or all those potato peelers that are made in any different way from the standard potato peeler that everybody has had since forever. How many engineers spent time designing that and making prototypes that went to LAKEY and had a design review? Standard and certification for food-grade materials were poured over. Collections of mandatory documentation about production and materials were carefully collected and stored. A committee approved it, and it went to production engineers who was tasked to do the tooling, which probably resulted in design changes that went back and got more LAKEY and final go-ahead. Samples was sent out to convention and consumer goods fairs. Salespeople stood in a booth and offered representatives from large retail chains quotes for 100k units over 12 months' time. Deals were struck, contracts signed. Money were put in escrow accounts. Designers made packaging and created logotypes and sent brand names to be stamped in the production facility. Instruction and labels were translated to the local language by technical writers. Logistic people pored over shipping and made sure it had all the correct numbers and barcodes. Retail worked printed labels and stacked the shelves. Not once did anybody take the time to stop and say, hey, I actually tried to peel a potato with this and it didn't really work. Like at all. In a lot of cases, whether or not a product works is secondary to whether it looks good on shelves. Potato peelers are a saturated market. Everyone already has one and they last close to forever. But a different peeler with packaging that convinces you that it will work better than the one you've got. That's a fresh market. Whether or not it works is immaterial, you just have to get people to buy it and make it cheap enough to be not worth returning, but instead live in the back of the junk drawer forever. To make the problem worse, a single piece of cheap molded plastic with one flimsy razor is way cheaper to mass produce than an actually good product. And it's really hard to improve on the current design. Repeat with every kitchen product ever and you get aisles and aisles of cheap plastic kitchen products that don't work. You've just outlined 50% of everything wrong with modern society. I work in an agency similar to the one you describe. We just did a rebrand and the guy in charge of creating our promotional video made absolute shit. But the problem is nobody could argue with him cause he's the director of design in our company and happens to be the CEO's best friend. So we ended up having to post this piece of ass video that those two thought were really good. It's just because they're so far up each other's asses and their own that they believe everything they make is gold. This is the real answer here. As someone who has also made piece of shit commercials, we know it's shit, but someone higher than us up the client chain has a vision and it's our dumb job to make that vision happen. I've had clients insist on using their family members as actors when said family clearly couldn't act. Or they have a catchphrase that is just absolutely cringeworthy. Or they've got dreams worth millions but a budget of 2k and expect you to figure out how to make it happen. Then we sit around and look at the garbage we made and say, well, this is what they asked for. Why I hate going to sleep and also hate waking up. Edit. I know people hate edits, but I didn't think this would murder my inbox and I don't have time to reply to every single person. So, I'm not depressed. I used to be, for several years. But a few years ago I got better, didn't just happen overnight obviously, but I'm not gonna go into detail about it here. I'm much happier now and enjoy life a lot more, but I still hate my sleep schedule. I keep trying to get it somewhat normal, but it keeps getting F up. Maybe anxiety is a part of it, but I doubt that is the sole reason. I don't hate change, for the most part. It depends on the change, but I don't think that applies here. I'm not a toddler, kinda wish I was though sometimes. I've tried using melatonin and other sleep aids, sometimes it works but not always. Doesn't matter how early I go to bed, I will lay in bed for 6 hours and not be able to go to sleep until 7 in the morning. I've had this problem for almost a couple decades now and in multiple settings, when I was in high school, when I had a full-time job, and now that I'm going back to school and have a part-time job. I didn't know hating get in and out of showers was thing, but apparently it is. What a bunch of weirdos. Seriously though, I just think it's very nuanced and there are multiple factors that contribute to it. I'd like to have a sleep study done, but it's so difficult to find the time to do so right now. And to all my fellow sleep haters, unite. Or not, we'd probably be a terrible team, being tired and sleeping at odd times and whatnot. How perfect strangers make small talk and how they know when to end the conversation without it dragging on awkwardly. The word anyway seems to work to segue to the end of a conversation. I used to be a lawyer and had 4 steps on my time to finish this consultation ladder. 1. Okay then. 2. Okay then again, but this time slapping the table gently with both hands. 3. Stand up. 4. Walk from behind desk, past client and open door. Only one client ever stayed sitting past step 4. It was horrible, I was powerless to defeat him. He stayed another 15 minutes, trying to teach me positive energy moves from his own brand of Tai Chi. I notice you said used to be a lawyer, when can we expect your ebook on Tai Chi? I love you. I love you. And I love you, too. Now you 3 kith. Can I get in on this? Excuse me, this is a family site. I wish my supervisor understood this when he calls me. I'll go anyways and he'll just say yup and then this awkward silence that makes me physically cringe. Edit. Thank you everyone for the advice on how to end the conversation, but I'm going to have to go with the guy saying he's about to shit himself so he has to go. Wish me luck. Well, you need to say more than just anyways. Follow it up. Anyways, I need to get going. Anyways, I should be getting back to work. Anyways, I have a meeting in a couple minutes I need to prepare for. Anyway, it was nice talking with you. People who take personal offense when your taste in music, movies, food, whatever differs from theirs. I went to college with a guy who listened to exclusively classic rock. Great genre, totally get it. Except he would get legitimately angry when someone put on rap in the car or wanted to sing Papa Karaoke. Refused to work with a friend of mine in a group project because she loved techno, said her opinions would never matter because obviously something was wrong with her. Why can't you just let people enjoy the shit they like? It's a form of elitism that makes themselves feel better and more cultured or intelligent than the people around them. It's dumb. I mean, look at the other comments on this post about people liking celebrities. It's the same shit. An extremely elitist friend of mine in high school got me into metal. Told me what genres and subgenres were good. Being a young dude in high school with limited friends, I quickly picked up on being an elitist twat. Listening to my superior music at full volume, playing it out loud on the bus, etc. And then I listened to one of the genres he said not to. And I really liked it. I didn't say anything, but I listened to it more and more. Eventually I saw a Reddit post, and a guy was calling out an elitist metalhead and saying you like what you like. Music is great, it's so varied and so wonderful. It doesn't matter if you like some obscure black metal and One Direction, still relevant at the time, all that matters is that you listen to what you enjoy. And that got me to stop being an elitist asshole. I now have musical taste ranging from everything from old country, to rap, to hardstyle, to death metal. And it's great. There's so much out there, stop shitting on others for 2 seconds and find something new to enjoy. Sometimes when I'm just sitting there, I become hyper aware of my senses, and then the whole concept of existence just confuses the F out of me. Edit. Look mom, no hands. Or when you're brushing your teeth or washing your face and you stare at yourself in the mirror too long and you're just like whoa, this is me. But I'm actually me and I see me. And you go into a mini existential crisis about you being you and then you forget it happened. It's like when you're reading a word over and over and it starts losing all meaning. Except that instead of a word, it's you. I want to frame this quote. Take a screenshot, save it somewhere with a link. If after the quarantine is over you still feel like framing it, get a frame. No, impulse by every family member 1. I get that with the concept of infinity. Like, I understand it on a superficial level, but when I really stop and think about it, I can feel my brain noping out. Mine is trying to picture what's outside of our universe, and then what's outside of that. If you go back before the Big Bang, what would existence look like? The concept of space-time is taxing on my mind. Yeah, that's what usually fries my circuits. Space. What the F do you mean it's infinite? There's got to be a boundary of sorts, surely. But what's outside of that boundary? And where does that end? And then I give up and go play Tetris or something. Consciousness really F with me. Like our brains are so developed and we're the only species that is self-aware, then our consciousness just disappears when we die. Edit. Apparently humans aren't the only species that are self-aware. Y'all don't need to tell me this 50 times lol. The weird thing is, I'm not even sure I'm conscious in the first place. Have you ever zoned out while performing a complex task, and yet despite being totally tuned out you still manage to complete the complex task? Driving is a great and horrifying example of this. Road hypnosis is a thing. You can be totally zoned out, you don't even remember driving for the past 30 minutes, and yet you've arrived at your destination. There was no conscious mind active, so you were unconscious, and yet managed to successfully operate a 3,000-pound lump of steel traveling at 75 miles per hour for 30 minutes. If I can do that without the I being present, is the I part even really needed? Or am I just a peanut gallery, observing on and commenting on things that are happening automatically without my intervention? Imagine if zoning out meant that the autopilot was taking over, beating the consciousness and restoring the body into its original state. But then you come to your senses, overriding this sliding back into abyss. And would anyone know if zoning out won and you became autopiloted? Are there people who already are, but we will never know? Dude. Can you not? God damn it. Wow, I never thought about that. That's crazy. Some philosophers argue that we are always on autopilot and our conscious self is just observing. Doesn't that equate to no free will? Without free will you basically must be an observer who thinks he has a control over whatever he does, but it's just him feeling the thoughts and understanding why the thing which is happening, fooling him enough to think he made the thought and decision. Yes. Years ago I read a paper about people who have experienced brain bifurcation. Essentially the two hemispheres of their brains have been surgically, or accidentally, separated. They essentially lose all control of half of their body, but that half still functions. Even more interesting, and you can see video of this, there is still some kind of communication taking place behind the scenes. Like if they show an image to the eye that is blind, that the consciously aware test subject can't see, they might hear a bell outside or in some other way be aware of the bell. Or they'll show an image to the seeing eye that the blind one can't see and get a hand they have no control over to draw, and it will draw the image. The best thing that researchers were able to come up with is that, essentially, we share brain space with a silent partner our whole lives, and the only time it ever really comes to the front is when our brains are split or during autopilot. You should look into it. It's fascinating. We are a bunch of atoms moving around. Every action of every atom is a reaction caused by a previous action. This started with the beginning of the universe, and we are all just witnessing the inevitable reactions taking place. A very complicated domino. The fate of the universe is predetermined, and we live under the illusion of free will because we cannot process the massive complexity of the entire system. If that's true, then I love how parts of the inevitable machine has inexorably led itself to this Reddit thread, where it is now arguing with itself about the nature of itself. How language developed. Obviously it did, but I just can't fathom how. I just picture cavemen walking and pointing to things and grunting. Sorry for the edit, but my typo was driving me crazy. That's basically it, they made sounds to refer to stuff, and people caught on and used the same sounds and understood through context and repetition what each other meant, and it built and spread from there. I imagine early communication started with things like hey, relax, I'm not gonna kill you, come here, look, food, tasty animal, danger. All things that are kind of obvious what is intended to convey in context and with pointing at the thing as you make a sound. But really think about the origins of words. I mean, at some point someone decided that this collection of letters means this, and others went yup, I like that. Especially abstract words like there, or then. Why is another one that you have to wonder about. Obviously it's a very important question that has led man to figure out amazing things, but why? Words preceded letters and written language by a very long time, in all likelihood. But yes, it does appear that the words chosen were pretty entirely arbitrary. Why did they do it? I don't even know if it was intentional, rather than one caveman simply using similar grunts for the same thing, and his friend catching on and doing the same similar grunts back, and they realized they were both understanding each other and went from there. And communication is useful, so once people started doing it, it spread and didn't die out. Nothing. Like the whole concept of nothing boggles my mind. What was here before our universe? Nothing. What's in between the atoms of our bodies? Nothing. What's for dinner? Nothing. I just don't get it. Just because we can't perceive something, it doesn't mean it's nothing. But isn't there that theory of observation? Like, something doesn't exist unless someone is there to observe it. And by that logic, if we can't perceive it and nothing else can, it doesn't exist. I also don't mean to sound condescending, I'm just asking because I don't fully understand the concept. There's no evidence that said theory is correct. You also mentioned how there was nothing before the universe. Who says there was nothing? Maybe the universe has existed forever and we're just here for this iteration of it. After the big crunch, another big bang is initiated and the cycle repeats like it has a trillions times before. Also, we can only perceive things on this plane. Perhaps there are a million other planes, or dimensions if you will, coexisting right beside ours, but we are unable to perceive them. Just like how we can see certain colors of the rainbow, yet there are more light waves we can only detect using specialized tools and can't with our own eyes. That doesn't mean they weren't there before we had those tools. But what was before forever? That's the thing, there was no before, there was only forever. It's a very hard concept for humans to understand, if it's even possible to completely understand, because I can't. Everything in the universe just existed since matter cannot be created nor destroyed, but with that argument, there can also be no infinite universe, since there is a finite amount of particles in the universe. This is a concept that I love and hate to think about. I feel like the show Dark has helped me wrap my head around the concept in a roundabout way. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Just avoid looking up much about it because almost anything is a spoiler. Guys that hit each other in the nuts for fun. What the F is with that? I watched an interview with Steve-O and he says fans want him to kick them in the nuts and are so happy and thank him when he does. I think it's more the hitting that's supposed to be fun, not the being hit. Obviously it's a bit different with asking Steve-O cause he's famous from Jackass, the person wants a cool story, Steve-O kicked me in the balls. An important note, when hitting your mates in the balls, you're supposed to do it lightly, it's about the reaction, not trying to cause them permanent damage. Of course that might happen accidentally anyway, but people doing it don't generally realize that. My niece hit me in the nuts, and I've never wanted to throw an 11-year-old from an 8th floor balcony more in my life.